I'm going to drop it near a thermal vent. And then your debate, your whole argument is going to dissolve just like that oligonucleotide would, right? So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you take a little bit of time to think about whether or not you want to shoot yourself with that AK-47, or whether or not you just want to try and run away from the landmine as quick as you can. You decide. It is your... What? It's your argument? It's your life? It's your... I don't know. Anyways, see ya.
Well done, page 85. I'm sorry, P.I.D.S. I give up. You are so much smarter than me, so this is going to be my last video response to you. Well, it's going to be my last video's response to you, but you are... No, I'm not going to say it. Well, given that the options, I'm going to let you landmine detonate my decoy while I'm going to snipe you from behind with my sniper rifle. For you who are interested, I would just suggest that you skip to the end of this video. That will be my point of this video, just to make sure that no one thinks I'm going to run away or hide from the actual debate. The debate itself, I think, is pretty pointless. Well, I never said you're just going to drop the oligonucleotides in water. You know, that would be stupid. I thought you were familiar with abiogenesis and how micelles form spontaneously in water. That is by dropping fat in water you get micelles. Micelles can spontaneously rearrange themselves to a phospholipid bilayer, of course. A phospholipid bilayer is what you find in bacteria. They also have proteins in their cell membranes, but the proteins come from the DNA, but the phospholipids, they can form by themselves. You know, it's the same thing. I could go and explain how you get the micelle, how the micelle traps the nucleotides, where other nucleotides come from, how the phosphodiester bonds between the nucleotides will ligate. I don't know, I think it's ligate in English, I'm not sure. And all that, I could explain how they separate, how they form, without using these two articles. But I can't debate chemistry with a scientific illiterate. But I have proved my point. I showed you what kind of a person P.I.D.S is. He's a scientific illiterate, and he tried to pretend that he laid a trap for me, but I can prove him wrong. The important thing here is to expose P.I.D.S for the liar that he is, and how his ignorance. And let's take a look at that clip again, and then focus on what he says in that clip. Okay?
Reason for this is because there's such a thing as a kinetic barrier, right? You know how you went over so much about, the weak bonds between the nucleotides and how it's so weak, all we need to do is increase the heat and they just separate. Well, in DNA, that doesn't happen. In DNA, that just doesn't happen because there's that kinetic barrier. It's stopping it from just doing it by itself.
That's what he said. Now let's bring up a short transcript of what he says. You know how you went over so much about, the weak bonds between the nucleotides and how it's so weak. All you need to do is increase the heat and it will separate. Well, in DNA, that doesn't happen. Well, now P.I.D.S tried to claim that actually, one would normally think that would apply to what is mentioned before. What is mentioned before a sentence is usually what that should refer to. He claims that he talks about something else in the beginning, and that somehow refers to that. But guys, do you really think that? I don't think that. Do you think that? Well, think of it like this. Say that I talk and I say like, yeah, well, I claim that x is equal to 3, and then npage claim that x is equal to 2. Well, that is not possible. Then the sentence not possible, am I then talking about what npage said or what I said? Well, of course I'm going to refer to the last sentence, not the sentence that predates the last sentence. That's pretty obvious. So we basically have two options here, that P.I.D.S. is a liar or that P.I.D.S. is correct. Well, what do you guys think? I don't think you're that stupid that you're going to fall for what P.I.D.S. claims in his video, you know? Well, let's take another look at that video clip again and look what he does with his hands.
The kinetic barrier, right?
Okay.
You know how you went over so much.
Watch
about,
how he uses his hands here and how
the nucleotides and how it's so weak.
they separate here. You see?
The heat and they just
yeah,
separate.
separate.
Well, in DNA, that doesn't happen. In DNA, that just doesn't happen because there's that kinetic barrier. It's stopping it from just doing it by itself.
Did you see how he used his hands there again? How he refers to the hand movement there is how the DNA separates. So he's saying, well, in DNA that doesn't happen, and he's separating his hands. Now he separated his hands earlier when he talked about how I claim that the weak hydrogen bonds, when subjected to heat, separate. Then he separated his hands. Now he's doing it again when he's talking about when he says, well, in DNA that doesn't happen, and does the same hand motion. So guys, what do you think? You see what he did with his hands there? First, when he talks about separating the nucleotides by adding heat, he uses that hand motion. Then when he comes to this sentence, well, in DNA that doesn't happen, he separates his hand again. It's obvious that he's talking about the separation of the hydrogen bonds when adding heat. Well, now he tries to claim that this was his tactic, that he used this to fool me. Well, he's insulting my intelligence, and he's insulting the intelligence of his subscribers. You know, no one is going to believe you, P.I.D.S. No one is that stupid, you know. Well, they maybe missed it. They maybe fall for your rhetoric, but you know, it is so obvious. You know, when you are talking, you know, A, B, C will always refer to B or A. That's logical. What you're claiming is that after reconstruction of what really happened, you know it, I know it. You thought that you would need an enzyme to separate the hydrogen bonding with DNA. You know, I have proved that you are a scientific illiterate. It is so much fun. It's hilarious. I don't think you're going to fool anyone with that after reconstruction that somehow refers to something you're talking about much earlier than the sentences that precedes this sentence, you know? You know how you went over so much about, you know, the weak bonds between the nucleotides and how it's so weak. All you need to do is increase the heat and it will separate. Well, in DNA, that doesn't happen. You can't fool me. You can't fool anyone with half a brain. As you can't fool your own subscribers. They will see this. They will know that you are a liar. I have proved my point. There's no reason to continue debating with you, P.I.D.S. You are a liar. You tried to make a after reconstruction, and it is so obvious. Well, just look at his hand motion. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm right? Or are you thinking that he's right? Well, if you are on his side on the intelligent design versus evolution, put that aside. What do you really think went on here? Do you actually think that he didn't think it was impossible to separate the DNA without just adding heat? Well, it is so obvious. I was arrogant and I was condescending to him because I caught him on this, and now he was so desperate and backed into a corner that this was the best he could think of. But it's so transparent. You don't fool me. You won't fool anyone with half a brain, and your own subscribers will see right through this. I have exposed you for what you are, P.I.D.S. You are a scientific illiterate, and you are a liar. And that is all I had to say to you. Goodbye, P.I.D.S.